How can we really focus on emotional wellness?
So this is growing from life's experiences. So not letting experiences knock us down and out, but growing from them, learning from them, moving forward.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Family That Learns. Today we're talking about nutrition, and today we have Julie. Thank you for coming out today. Can you tell everybody outside, out in the world, what your name is and a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm Julie Browning. I live here in Portland, and I have been an endurance coach since 2001.
Okay.
Where I've worked with athletes,
Great.
runners, cyclists, triathletes, and then more recently become a certified health coach.
Congratulations.
Thank
How,
you.
what got you into wanting to be an endurance trainer?
I was an endurance athlete.
Or an endurance athlete?
Yeah, and I just love the process of the human body adapts to what we ask it to do. And how can we do that effectively, efficiently, and get the most out of it?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. So today's class, what are we talking about today?
So we are going to be talking about health coaching and looking at what ingredients feed your health and wellness.
Love it. All right, so let's get into it. What is a health coach? For those that are out they're wondering if how health coaching is maybe something they want to get into.
Yeah, it's a great question. Health coaching is kind of a newer thing, and so not a lot of people are aware of what it is. So as a health coach, I work with people who are ready to make positive behavioral change, but they might feel stuck or overwhelmed or confused, not sure how to move forward. So we work with a health coach to help take those little baby steps to move forward with those positive behavioral changes. And it can be around nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep quality. Those are the main 4 big pillars.
Love it. Okay. So how can a health coach help you overcome challenges in your health journey?
So as a health coach, we figure out what your strengths are, your unique superpowers, signature strengths. And then how do we leverage those when we develop strategies to overcome challenges and barriers? So if you have a strategy that's based on maybe something you're not so good at, it's not going to work. So we want to leverage your strengths, celebrate those.
Love it. Is there ever a situation that you felt like the challenges were too great, or do you feel like there's always a chance to kind of overcome these things?
Well, I think it comes down to motivation. We need to make sure that we understand your why and keep asking that question. Why is it important to you? Keep drilling down. And once you understand your motivation, and then we know what your strengths are, and develop strategies that align with both of those.
Love it. So your job is really to just overcome the no's and really giving a fortification of motivation, so they're constantly being able to achieve their goals.
Yeah, I mean there has to be they have to want to make the change. So there has to be a want. And then, but they just feel stuck or overwhelmed. And they just need that support.
No, I've been in that situation, so I totally get it. So what is health and wellness, and why is it important?
Well, health and wellness means different things to different people. We're all unique. So I like to look at it as ingredients. So what ingredients feed my health and wellness might be very different than what feed yours. It's what keeps you grounded. What fills your cup, what keeps you grounded. And so, figuring out what ingredients are important to you.
For sure. And what in your life, what led you to wanting to focus on health and wellness? Was it your own past experience, or what was the origin of that?
I think for me, to be the best athlete I could be, it's not just about the workout. It's about how I rest, how I sleep, how I manage stress, all the other pieces that feed into that. And so it's having this holistic approach to being an athlete led me to being really interested in health and wellness in general.
Yeah, great. And do you feel that when you started focusing on those things, what was your past experience? I mean, before you got really into health and wellness, what was your past like experience, or at least knowledge of like what to do as an athlete?
Yeah, I think I focused on obviously the training,
Yeah.
the rest, and how I fueled my body.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't really bring in these other pieces, thinking about personal growth, social connections, all those other pieces that we'll talk about in a second.
No, I think that's a perfect segue. So, what is the main ingredients for health and wellness?
Yeah, so I developed a wellness wheel that
Yeah.
looks at things in 11 categories. And so we can go through those real quick,
Yeah.
and then we can dive a little deeper into some if you want to.
Yeah, listen up.
So we've got the movement, the exercise, the physical activity piece, and then we've got the rest, the recovery, the chill time,
Yep.
and then the fueling. So that's nutrition and hydration. And then we have the social health and wellness, emotional health and wellness, existential health and wellness, kind of having a purpose in our life, mental health and wellness, having that growth opportunity, spiritual health and wellness, and technology or digital health and wellness, so our relationship to our devices, environmental health and wellness, that's our surroundings. Do we feel safe and secure? And then financial health and wellness.
I think that's a lot of the deterrent for a lot of people, is like, I just can't afford to be healthy or afford to have all these wellnesses. So let's focus on 6 of them. I know we talked about there's 11, and again, if you guys want the information about the 11 health and wellnesses, we'll have a PDF down below for you guys to download and like get more information on it. But the top 6 that I think we wanted to talk about were going to be
social health and wellness.
Yes.
Yeah, let's start there. So having these strong, reliable, meaningful relationships in our lives, it's so important. And obviously that's looked a little different during COVID.
Yeah, because we weren't able to like actually connect with a lot of people. And I think that's super important, because I mean, for me, I'm a very social person. I say I'm an introvert, extrovert kind of person, where it's just like, I am extroverted up to 20 people, and then like after 20 people, I shut down and I'm an introvert. So when you are very limited on who you can talk with and who you can be around with, that can be very stressful, also depressing. So I think that's super important to identify those things and be like, are you a social person, and what is your social circle, and how does that affect you? So it's huge.
Yeah, and even the introverts among us, the social connections are still super important. So it's finding people to engage with that have those common interests.
Yeah.
It's about having your community, and we can have different communities. We can have a community at work, a neighborhood community, a community around a common interest or hobby. But cultivating those communities, putting some effort into growing those relationships, and then giving back, contributing to those communities too.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's huge. All right, so what's the next one out of the 6?
Okay, we had emotional health and wellness.
Yes,
I think
especially nowadays, I feel emotions are high. So how can we really focus on emotional wellness?
So this is growing from life's experiences. So not letting experiences knock us down and out, but growing from them, learning from them, moving forward. And a lot of this is our mindset. So working on our mindset, our self-talk. How do we talk to ourselves? How do we show ourselves self-love, self-kindness, self-compassion? And there's a lot of strategies to do this. This can be meditation, it can be journaling, it can be affirmations, it can be connecting with others like we just talked about. And so there's a lot of ways we can work on emotional health and wellness.
Definitely. So there's a lot of overlapping between each wellnesses, and they are all kind of linked. So I would say that it's more of like a linking chain of wellnesses.
For sure,
Yes,
for sure.
I love that. Perfect. All right. So then we're now number 3, which is?
Purpose,
Yes.
existential health and wellness. So this is having meaning and purpose in our life.
Yeah.
It's about, sorry.
No, you're good. Why am I here? Kind of situation. No, I feel you.
All right, okay.
No, we can go again. We can
Let's
go
do it
again.
again. Hang on
Okay.
a second. Okay, feeling satisfied, enriched. Okay. Okay, I'm good.
All right. So we're at number 3, and that is?
Purpose, existential health and wellness.
Yeah.
And this is about having meaning and purpose in what we do, feeling satisfied, feeling enriched. And this can be in many roles. It could be in the work that we do for getting paid, but it could be volunteer work. It could be a role as a parent. But having this strong sense of purpose is really important for our overall health and wellness. And this is where it's good if your purpose leverages your strengths, what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So it gives it more meaning. So it's a good question is, what are you good at? What are those strengths?
Yeah. And I think that, like, especially for young people, it's very interesting when people say, like, oh, I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is, and like, how do I find my purpose? And I think it's definitely a trial and error. I think it's just like, hey, I'm gonna try this out and see if it's my thing, and if it's not, it's all good. But I think the hard part is when you are an adult and you're at this point where like, oh man, I don't know what my purpose is, and that's a lot more stressful. And I think, what are some ways that people can really start saying like, hey, like, I want to find my purpose. I'm struggling even as an adult. Like, what are like maybe like a couple steps or tips that you can give for them to really identify like, this is my path of wellness or path of purpose?
Yeah, great question. Starting with what your strengths are, identify those.
Yeah.
Ask the people close to you what they think your strengths are. And how can you leverage those? What keeps you grounded? What brings you joy?
Yeah.
And then is there a way to roll that into a sense of purpose? And then looking at your different roles. If you feel like you're stuck in a certain job, but can you look at another role that can be really satisfying?
For sure, yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things is like the feeling that we're stuck. That like this is it for the rest of my life. And I think that's a very dismal way of, I would say, thinking about it. And I think that a lot of people need to really understand that like when it comes to jobs, you can always get another job. I mean, it's right, especially now, there's tons of jobs out there. But I think it's just also a situation of like, it's also very uncomfortable, like really introspectively. When I was figuring out like what I want to do with my life and like starting to feed the mass, it was very much a situation of like you said, what am I good at? I'm good at cooking. I love talking with people. I love interacting with people. I love teaching people. And like, I was like, well, is there organizations out there or businesses out there that are really focusing on these things and really creating access? And like, I honestly like was looking at like places like Charlotte Todd, and there's all these other organizations but it wasn't accessible. And I was like, well, like, and for some people it's really like, you're meant to create that thing that is motivating for you. That is your purpose. And especially if you don't see it here or you don't see it anywhere in the world, like you have to create it. And that's the hard part when you have to create it. So for those that are out there that are like listening to this, like sometimes your purpose is creating a purpose. It's not always just falling into a purpose.
Yeah, and it started with some self-awareness work, that introspective work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that, I think that's the hard part is like that introspective is just like, oh, well, yeah, totally. I can definitely, I have to unfortunately look at myself in that. And I think that was very interesting during COVID because there was a lot of people who were like, my job just like is no longer there. And I'm stuck in my house and there's no work and everything's closed and I have to be with myself. And for some people it was scary, for some people it was enlightening, for some people it was, a happy time. Yeah, I think definitely the introspective work is crucial to like finding your purpose.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in a second.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we're on number 4, which is?
Number 4, mental health and wellness, but looking at in terms of growth.
Okay.
Yeah, so how can you stay curious? How can you stay stimulated in what you do? And this can be emotionally, intellectually, creatively, ways that you can challenge yourself, step out of your comfort zone. And I love this question: when was the last time that you did something for the first time?
That's so true. I think that's I'm serial for this. When I was younger, is like I would find a hobby just so I can like be like, oh, maybe I can be good at archery. Maybe I can be good at, my thing in high school was Yu-Gi-Oh. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh card player, back in the day. But it was just like I always wanted to find something that like I was just naturally gifted at. And it was very few things. Fortunately, cooking was my natural gift, and then I found that out later in like when I was like 20. I was like, I'm gonna go to culinary school and develop these things. But I think definitely, curiosity has been very helpful in my life, and that's why I tell everybody, I'm like, well, like how do I know if this is the right thing? I'm like, just do it, and if you fail, then you fail. If you don't, then it's okay. Both are good answers. They're not wrong answers.
Yeah, I like to look at things as experiments.
Exactly.
Because there's no failing, there's only learning.
Yeah.
So trying to get away from that, feeling of failure, because that never feels good. But learning.
And I think that's the scary part is like, I'm reading this new book called The Secrets to Success by Eric Thomas. And I'm actually at this chapter right now where we're talking about like one of the big principles was actually growth, but it wasn't in the sense of like growing up, but it's more of the expansion of like where are you planted. And for some people, you have to put yourself in a very uncomfortable spot to grow. Yes. And that is a part of growth, is like, taking that risk, meeting new people, putting yourself in environments you're not comfortable with. But if you see yourself wanting to be a part of this area, a really good example, when a kid goes from high school to college basketball, like you're in an environment that is 100% different. Like their workouts are 100% different. You're also an adult, so now you have a lot more responsibilities that you have to add on to those things. And for some it works, some it doesn't. A lot doesn't work. And it's just one of those things that like a lot of people, when they're trying to find success in certain situations or growth, if you're always in a place of comfort, you will be very good in your little pond, but you'll never make it out in the ocean. That's my quote for the day, y'all.
I love it.
All right, so now we're on number 5, which
number
is
5, spiritual health and wellness.
This is perfect. I love that. I'm a very spiritual. I'm a Christian, but I'm a very spiritual person. I think there's a reason for everything.
So this is about understanding what your values and your beliefs are, and living according to them, using them as your moral compass, making decisions based on them. This takes some self-reflection, that introspective work, peeling back the layers, spending time with yourself. And this can be hard for some folks. And so if you have a religious framework, it's a little easier. But understanding what your top 3 values are, or do you have phrases that guide your life?
For sure. And I think that's you're 100% true. When it comes to religion, like as a Christian, we have a book. When you don't have those things, it's the hard part, where you have to start, honestly, in your own sense, make your own book and be like, this is my lines on how I believe on things and everything like that. So I think that is very important, that introspective, to be like, hey, like what is good and bad in my life? And like, if you're always wishy-washy, I can see where there's conflict all the time, and it can actually cause a lot of, I would say, pain for certain things.
Yeah. And I love using guiding phrases, quotes if you want.
Yes.
So some of mine are, how can you be the better part of someone else's day?
Yes.
Leaving things better than you found them. So these can help then unearth what your values are, your beliefs. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And I think it was very interesting that like people, especially like people that are religious, I think it is very limiting if you only think of like only your one religion. I'm very curious with other religions and like their quotes and what their beliefs are, because there's a lot of intersecting. There's a lot of intersecting phrases or morals, and I think it's just one of those things that like it really is a situation of we all want to be good people. We all want to get through this world without harming people. But how do we go about it, and like how do we deal with also the trauma that maybe we might have had in the past, or how other people have treated us? And I think that's one of those like things where, as much as it is mental, it is very much a soul part. It's like who we are, and like if you're unable to forgive, then that's something in your spirit or in your soul or in your own spirituality of like you have to work on those things. And like so I think that's huge.
Yeah, and this, understanding your values and beliefs, it takes time. It takes effort, conscious effort.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of leads to the number 6.
Number 6, which is
is the technology or digital health and wellness.
Yes.
So this is our relationship with our devices.
Unhealthy. I already admit it. I am a phone addict. Yeah. If my phone was to get lost, I think I would die.
Yeah.
At least not like physically. I think like spiritually I would be hurt.
Yeah. So thinking about our phones as tools, not companions.
True.
Using them to enrich our lives. And it's okay to have moments of boredom. So we tend to reach for our phones when we are trying to fill space and we're feeling bored, and we start scrolling. So in those moments of boredom are when we can do this inner work, this introspective work, and it's in moments of boredom that we're the most creative and problem solving. And so just knowing, just understanding or accepting that, it's okay to have moments of boredom.
Okay. So like, it's very interesting you bring up boredom, because I think that is one thing that we try to definitely avoid. I definitely avoid, and I don't really even, I think I consciously think of like, oh, I'm bored, so I'm gonna go on TikTok, or I'm bored, I'm gonna go on YouTube, or I'm bored and I'm gonna text a friend. But like, what are the benefits of going into that boredom state? Like you said, you were talking about a little bit of perspective. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think, being able to set boundaries around your phone. How do you want to use it? And understanding that overuse, there are consequences, whether that's physical, emotional, psychological consequences. And we are all different. And so my tolerance for technology might be different than yours,
sure.
Right? And so understanding that we're all different. But being able to set those boundaries and then have something to do instead of reaching for your phone.
Yeah.
So whether that is a journal or maybe it's a meditation type of self-reflection, 5 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just being mindful and being where you are. So let's say you're at the doctor's office waiting, and instead of scrolling, just being present and being mindful, taking your surroundings. And one of my favorite ways is to go through your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? Go through the senses will really bring you and ground you in the present.
Yeah. No, I think that's just, man. So I know that at least on Apple phones, there is always those limitations you can put on all your apps. So for those of you at home, if you guys want to try that and like want to be more mindful, and that like that your addiction is very hard, and that you need to set like boundaries, and your boundaries is a passcode that maybe you have to put on your phone that sets your amount of time you can be on certain things. But I think it's definitely valuable to be in this space where like, hey, I'm going to be present, and like I'm not going to check my phone, or I'm going to plug my phone in one room, and I'll only check it like, if my phone goes off for a ring or something like that. Creating distance and boundaries. I love that. I think that's huge. Especially, I admit in the beginning of this, was talking about technology, was like, if my phone was to go away or was to get lost, I would be lost as a person. And it's mainly because I think it's also my life's in there. Like, I couldn't tell you anybody's phone number. Like, I couldn't tell my mom's phone number off the top of my head. So like, all my connections to everyone is gone, which I think is also maybe could be a very mindful part, is like maybe you should really think about an analog way of keeping records of everything.
Right. But it's coming back to using it as a tool,
Yes.
right? So it's really useful for storing everyone's phone numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't had to remember a phone number since I was 12, so it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But I remember when I was a kid, that was like I felt like it was a superpower. How many phone numbers can you remember? And I felt like accomplished, and I was like, that's my superpower. I can remember phone numbers. Now I can't even remember. I barely remember mine, and that's the sad part. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking about all these different wellnesses. And again, guys, we're going to be setting the wellness diagram in the PDF down in the description, so you can go check it out. Print it out, put it on the wall, start working on these little things. And if people wanted to maybe set up an appointment with you to talk more about this, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I have a website, breakawaycoachingpdx.com.
Perfect. And we'll put it down below for you guys, and we'll put the link in the description.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and I usually start with that wellness wheel.
Love
and
it.
the questions you can ask yourself if you want to do a little self-reflection is what's going well. So always
Yes.
start with something positive. What's going well? What needs attention?
Yes, I love it. And I think, this is a really good time for you and your family to, if you guys are at home, to be like, ask these questions to each other. And I think it'd be very interesting to hear, like, especially when it comes to purpose, or even like your relationship with like technology, that could be a really good jumping off point and be like, hey, how are you doing, when it comes to your purpose, and what do you feel is your really good strengths? And then when it comes to your technology, do we use technology too much in the household? I think if that's a really good person that can hold you accountable, probably the person sitting next to you on the couch. So there you go. All right, well, we're going to be signing off, everybody. And again, we'll be spending all the information where you can contact Miss Julie, so you guys can have a one-on-one session. I think it's super important. Help support her in her effort of being an amazing coach. And if you guys want more information, make sure you go to feedthemouse.org, and make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notifications so we know that you won't miss any of our classes coming up in the future. If you outside of that, thank you, Julie, and thank you guys at home. Have a good day.
Thank you.